It started with a knock that wasn't really a knock. It was more of a demand, a sharp, rhythmic pounding on my front door that vibrated through the wood and right into my coffee cup, spilling a little bit of my Tuesday morning peace onto the kitchen counter. I had just finished it, you see, the fence. 5 acres of rolling Kentucky bluegrass, property that had been in my family for 3 generations, finally enclosed by 6 feet of solid, beautiful western red cedar. It wasn't just a barrier, it was a statement, a way of telling the world, or at least the encroaching suburbs, that this little patch of ranch land was still wild, still free, and still mine. I'd spent my savings on that wood, spent my weekends digging post holes until my hands were blistered and raw, and looking at it drying in the October sun, I felt a kind of pride that sits deep in your chest. But then came the pounding. I opened the door, and there she was, Brenda Sterling. If you've never met a Brenda, let me paint you a picture. She was the president of the Pine Valley Estates Homeowners Association, a subdivision that had sprung up like weeds along the southern border of my property about 5 years ago. She was wearing a floral dress that was aggressively bright, enough gold jewelry to sink a small boat, and an expression that suggested she had just smelled something rotten. "Mr. Colton," she said, not waiting for a hello, pointing a manicured finger directly at my chest like it was a loaded weapon. "That monstrosity has to go." I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms, trying to summon the patience I'd learned over 8 years in law enforcement. "Morning to you too, Brenda. I assume you're talking about my fence." "I am talking about that eyesore," she snapped, her voice rising an octave. "It is aggressive, it is unneighborly, and it completely destroys the open concept aesthetic of Pine Valley Estates. I have 3 emails in my inbox this morning from residents concerned about their property values plummeting because they have to look at a wooden wall. You need to tear it down. Today." I took a slow breath, smelling the fresh cedar in the air. "Brenda, we've been over this. My land is not in Pine Valley Estates. I'm not in your HOA. My grandfather bought this plot in 1955. Your subdivision was a cornfield until 2018. My fence is on my land, 6 inches inside the property line, permitted, inspected, and legal." She huffed, tossing her hair back, a gesture I'd come to learn meant she was about to say something incredibly incorrect with absolute confidence. "That is a technicality, Jack. We are a community. And as president, I have a mandate to preserve visual harmony. If you don't remove it, I will have the board issue a fine, and I will call the city to have it condemned as a blight." Just then, my neighbor Mike Russo rolled out from under his truck in the driveway across the street. Mike ran a mechanic shop, a good guy, the kind who'd give you the shirt off his back, but had been fighting Brenda for years over the color of his garage door. He wiped grease on a rag and shouted over, "Hey Jack, is the neighborhood queen trying to annex your land again?" Brenda whipped around, her face flushing a deep, angry crimson. "You stay out of this, Michael. This doesn't concern you." Mike just winked at me. "She's putting on a show, Jack. Grab some popcorn." Brenda turned back to me, her eyes narrowing. "You have 24 hours, Mr. Colton, or you will see just how much power this HOA actually has." She stomped off, her heels clicking angrily on my gravel driveway, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and bad energy in her wake. I watched her go, feeling that little knot of tension in my stomach. Not fear, never fear, but the realization that peace was over. She wasn't going to let this go. She needed a win. I'd heard the rumors that her husband had left her recently, that her kids stopped calling, and the HOA was the only kingdom she had left. And my fence? My fence was a wall she couldn't control. But what Brenda didn't know, what nobody in that subdivision knew because I kept my work and my home life very separate, was that I wasn't just Jack Colton, the quiet rancher with the horses. I was Sheriff Jack Colton, elected by the county, serving my 2nd term. I dealt with real criminals, real danger, every single day. And I knew the law better than she knew her bylaws. If she wanted to play games, I was ready. But I wasn't going to show my hand. Not yet. The escalation was almost immediate. Within an hour, I walked out to the gate to check the mail and found a neon orange sign zip-tied to my brand new cedar planks. Notice of removal, unauthorized structure. She had even stapled a blurry photo of my fence taken from a low angle to make it look like a prison wall. I ripped it down, crumbled it up, and tossed it in the bin. By noon, my phone started blowing up. Mike texted me a link to a Facebook live stream. I clicked it, and there was Brenda, standing on the sidewalk, phone held out, shaking with rage. "Look at this," she was saying to her 62 viewers. "This creates a divide. It says, I am better than you. It's antisocial behavior. We try to build a family here in Pine Valley, and this man builds a fortress. It's ugly, it's cheap, and it's got to go." I watched her panning the camera across my property, zooming in on my horses, narrating her own little reality show where she was the victim and I was the villain. I chuckled, took a sip of iced tea, and went back to work. Let her talk. Talk is cheap. That evening, I decided to attend the monthly HOA meeting. It was held in the community center, a sterile room that smelled of floor wax and tension. I walked in, boots dusty, holding a manila folder. The room went quiet. There were about 30 people there, and half of them looked relieved to see someone, anyone, stand up to her. Brenda was at the podium, projecting photos of my fence onto a screen. "It's a blight," she was shouting. "A literal blight." I raised my hand. "Brenda, if I could interject?" She glared at me. "You aren't a member, Mr. Colton. You have no speaking rights." "I'm a concerned neighbor," I said, walking to the front, ignoring her gavel banging. "And I have here the original survey maps from the county clerk, the building permits signed by the inspector, and a copy of the state statute regarding agricultural boundaries." I placed the folder on the table. "My fence is legal. Your jurisdiction ends at the curb. If you touch it, it's criminal trespass and destruction of private property." The room murmured. People were nodding. I saw a woman in the second row, Mrs. Gable, a sweet older lady who liked to bake cookies, looking at the documents with wide eyes. "It's not about the law," Brenda shrieked, losing her composure. "It's about the spirit of the neighborhood. You are ruining it." "I think," Mike Russo said from the back, standing up, "that the only thing ruining this neighborhood is the fact that we can't paint our shutters without a written apology to the board." A few people laughed. Brenda looked around, her control slipping. She was losing the room. "Fine," she spat. "Ignore me. But when your property values tank because we live next to a shantytown, don't come crying to me." I walked out feeling good. I thought maybe, just maybe, facts had won the day. I was wrong. At 2:30 a.m., I woke up. You know that feeling when the air changes? My dogs, two healers who sleep at the foot of the bed, lifted their heads and growled low in their throats. I got up, grabbed a flashlight, and went to the window. Down by the south pasture, I saw the sweep of headlights. A truck, backing up to my fence line. I didn't turn on the house lights. I slipped on my boots and went to my security monitor. I had installed trail cameras weeks ago, hidden in the trees, not because of Brenda, but to watch for coyotes. On the grainy night vision screen, I saw a pickup truck. I saw the license plate. It was Brenda's distinct, custom plate. And then I saw the truck accelerate backward. Crunch. The sound of wood splintering echoed through the night air. She slammed the bumper into my new fence, backed up, and did it again. I watched as a section of the cedar planks snapped and fell. Then, tires screeched, and the truck sped off into the darkness. I stood there in the dark, watching the replay. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a cold, hard anger. She hadn't just insulted me. She had attacked my home. She had destroyed my property. That's a felony. I could have gone over there right then. I could have arrested her in her pajamas. But as I watched the footage, a different plan formed in my mind. A plan that wouldn't just stop her, but would expose her completely. I needed to give her enough rope. The next morning, I didn't fix the fence. I left the broken boards lying in the grass like a wound. Mike came over with coffee, looking at the damage. "She's lost her mind, Jack. That wasn't wind." "I know," I said, sipping the coffee. "I have it on video." "You gonna collar her?" "Not yet. She thinks she's winning. I want to see how far she goes." That afternoon, Brenda posted a photo of the broken fence on the community page. Caption, "See? Substandard construction. It collapsed in a light breeze last night. Dangerous. Think of the children." It was laughable. But then Mrs. Gable, Sophie, commented, "Brenda, I was up with my grandbaby last night. I saw headlights over there. That didn't look like wind." 10 minutes later, the comment was deleted, and Sophie was blocked from the group. I knew I had to act fast before she intimidated everyone into silence. But that night, the sensors tripped again. 1:15 a.m. I watched the monitor. Two men this time, dressed in dark clothes, carrying crowbars. They weren't in a truck. They were on foot, coming from the direction of the subdivision. I could hear audio from the camera near the tree line. a voice crackling over a speakerphone one of them was holding. It was Brenda's voice. Just break the crossbeams. Make it look like it rotted. I need it on the ground by morning. My reputation is on the line. This is crazy, lady, one of the guys muttered. Just do it. I'm paying you double. I couldn't sit back this time. I grabbed my phone, recording as I ran out the back door, sprinting across the damp grass. Hey, I shouted, my voice booming. The guys froze. They saw me coming, 6'2" of angry rancher, and they dropped the crowbars and bolted. I chased them to the property line, getting a clear shot of their retreating van, but they were fast. They got away, but I had the crowbars. I had the audio, and I had the video. The next morning, Brenda was already spinning the narrative. She posted that I had been out in the middle of the night, drunk, destroying my own fence for insurance money. It was insane logic, but her loyalists were eating it up. Then came the 911 call. I was in the kitchen when dispatch radioed me directly. They knew I was off duty, but this was weird. Sheriff, we got a call from a Brenda Sterling. Says you're. Well, she says you're slashing her tires right now. I looked out the window. My truck was parked. I was drinking coffee. Send a deputy, I said, my voice calm. Send Deputy Ramirez. And tell him to play along. Ramirez showed up 20 minutes later, trying not to laugh. He went to Brenda's house. She came out sobbing, pointing at a scratch on her tire that looked like she'd curbed it months ago. He's unstable, she wailed. He threatened me. He's violent. Ramirez took the report, stone-faced. He came over to me. She wants you arrested, boss. Says she fears for her life. Good, I said. Let her think she has me cornered. I walked over to her house. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, a smug grin plastered on her face as she saw the deputy talking to me. I hope you're ready to take that fence down, Evan, she sneered. She never could remember my first name was Jack. Or face a lawsuit. I hung my head, looking at my boots, feigning defeat. You win, Brenda. I can't afford a lawsuit. I'll take it down. Her eyes lit up like Christmas lights. Excellent. I want it gone by Sunday. I'll do it Saturday, I said. In fact, why don't you invite the neighbors? Show them you won. I'll tear it down in front of everyone. A demolition party, she mused. I love it. She took the bait hook, line, and sinker. Saturday morning was crisp and beautiful. By 9 a.m., there were 40 people on the sidewalk. Brenda had set up a folding table with lemonade and cookies. She was wearing a yellow sundress, looking like the cat who ate the canary, holding court with the neighbors, telling them how she had single-handedly saved the community from my aggression. Mike stood next to me on my porch. You sure about this? Never been more sure, I said. I didn't bring a sledgehammer. I brought a projector, a large portable screen, and a PA system. I walked out to the edge of my property. The crowd quieted down. Brenda smiled, checking her watch. Well, get to work. We're waiting. I am getting to work, I said into the microphone. But before I tear anything down, I think the community deserves to know the full story of how we got here. We know the story, Brenda shouted. You built an illegal eyesore. Let's look at the tape, I said. I hit play on the laptop. The screen flickered to life. The first video was the security footage from the truck incident. The crowd gasped as they watched Brenda's distinct SUV ramming my fence repeatedly. That's fake, Brenda screamed, her smile vanishing. That's AI. He doctored it. Keep watching, I said. The next clip was the night vision footage. The two thugs with crowbars. The audio was crystal clear. My reputation is on the line. Break it. The crowd turned to look at her. The murmur started. Is that her voice? Someone whispered. That is a legal recording, Brenda yelled, pushing through the crowd toward me. Turn it off. You are violating my privacy. You were orchestrating a crime on my land, I said calmly. There is no expectation of privacy when you are committing a felony. I switched the slide. It was a screenshot of the text messages she had sent to Sophie Gable, threatening to fine her for weeds if she didn't lie about the fence. Sophie stepped out from the crowd. It's true, she said, her voice shaking but loud. She told me she'd ruin me if I didn't back her up. I saw the men that night. Brenda hired them. You traitor. Brenda hissed at her. And finally, I said, the tire slashing incident. I played the footage from my porch camera, timestamped during the time she claimed I was attacking her car. It showed me sitting on my porch, reading a book, petting my dog. Nowhere near her house. She filed a false police report, I said to the crowd. She wasted county resources. She lied to the police to try and get a neighbor arrested because she didn't like a fence. The crowd had turned. The look of disgust on their faces was palpable. They weren't looking at my fence anymore. They were looking at a monster in a yellow dress. This is harassment. Brenda shrieked, tears streaming down her face now, the panic setting in. I am the president. I did this for you. For your property values. You did this for your ego, Mike shouted. And you broke the law. Brenda looked around, realizing she had no allies left. She turned to run back to her house, but she stopped dead in her tracks. Because pulling up to the curb, lights flashing silently, was a sheriff's cruiser. Deputy Ramirez stepped out. Brenda let out a breath of relief. Officer. Thank God. Arrest him. He's humiliating me. Ramirez walked past her, up to me, and handed me a folder. Then he turned to Brenda. Ma'am, Ramirez said. We need to talk. About him? She pointed at me. No, about you. We have a warrant. She froze. A warrant? For what? Criminal mischief, destruction of private property, filing a false police report, and conspiracy. Ramirez listed them off on his fingers. And harassment of a public official. Brenda blinked. Public official? He's a rancher. I stepped off the porch. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my badge. I clipped it onto my belt. Sheriff Jack Colton, I said. County sheriff for the last 8 years. You've been filing false reports to my own deputies. Against their boss. The silence was absolute. You could hear a pin drop on the grass. Brenda looked at the badge. She looked at me. She looked at Ramirez. Her face went completely white. Her knees actually buckled, and she grabbed the folding table to stay upright, knocking over the lemonade pitcher. It crashed to the ground, soaking her shoes in sticky sugar water. You're the sheriff? She whispered. I am, I said. And Brenda, ignorance of who you are harassing is not a defense. You tried to weaponize the law against the law. You broke my fence, you terrified my neighbors, and you lied to my officers. I didn't know, she sobbed. I swear I didn't know. It wouldn't matter if I was a plumber or a pilot, I said. What you did was wrong. But the fact that you tried to frame a law enforcement officer? That's just stupid. Ramirez stepped forward with the cuffs. Brenda Sterling, you have the right to remain silent. As they walked her to the car, the neighbors didn't say a word. They just watched. It was the tragic end of a petty tyrant. The aftermath was swift. Brenda spent the night in jail. She bailed out the next morning, but the damage was done. She resigned from the HOA board before lunch. Within a week, a for sale sign was in her yard. She couldn't show her face in the neighborhood anymore. She pleaded guilty to the lesser charges to avoid felony time. She paid for the fence, every single board, plus labor, and served 300 hours of community service picking up trash on the highway. I made sure to wave every time I drove by her in my patrol car. Sophie Gable took over as interim president. The first thing she did? She organized a neighborhood work day. The following Saturday, the same crowd gathered at my house. But this time, they brought tools. They brought lumber. They brought beer. We're sorry, Jack, Mike said, handing me a hammer. We let her get away with too much for too long. Together, we rebuilt the fence. We made it stronger. We put decorative caps on the posts. It wasn't just a barrier anymore. It was a bridge. It was proof that a community is built on respect, not rules. I still live here, obviously. The fence is weathering nicely, turning a silver gray that matches the Kentucky sky. I see the neighbors walking their dogs, and they wave. I wave back. It makes you think, doesn't it? About how much power we give to people just because they yell the loudest. Brenda thought she was untouchable because she had a title. She thought she could bully her way through life. But she forgot the golden rule of the countryside. You don't mess with a man's land, and you definitely don't assume you're the smartest person in the room. Sometimes, the best way to handle a bully isn't to fight them in the street. It's to let them build their own trap, step right into it, and then turn on the lights so everyone can see them for who they really are. So, I want to hear from you guys. Have you ever had a neighbor from hell? An HOA president who thought they were God? How did you handle it? Did you fight back, or did you let them hang themselves? Drop your stories in the comments. I read every single one of them. And remember, know your rights, know your neighbors. And if someone comes knocking on your door trying to tear down what you've built, make sure you've got the camera rolling. Stay safe out there.